I am so excited to introduce our featured lab manager for today, Nicola Rennie. Nicola, would you like to say hello and introduce yourself?
I can. Hello, I'm Nicola. I do a lot of database stuff. I've been using R about 10 years, and I'm very excited to be doing some TidyTuesday visualizations live today.
Yes, I'm so excited. Okay, well, this is the place where we share screens and do stuff. So, Nicola, I'm going to say take it away. And while
Excellent.
you are sharing your screen, I will prime everybody by saying Nicola is going to show us her process of how she works through a Teddy Tuesday visualization. But we only have an hour here. And really, we only have like, what, 50 minutes, and we're going to be asking questions. So, quite obviously, she can't go through her entire process, but she is going to be sharing some of the ways that she thinks, some of the tools she's developed over the years. She'll talk about how long she's been doing this, how long she spends on stuff like this. So get your question asking typing fingers ready. All right, take it away, Nicola.
Awesome. Thank you. Um, so yeah, if you don't know what TidyTuesday is already, it's a super awesome sort of resource. So basically a new data set is released every week, every Tuesday. Although sometimes it's a Sunday, sometimes it's a Monday, you never know. Um, and the idea is that you make something with it and share your code with other people. I started doing Tidy Tuesday. It was my like COVID lockdown 2021 project. Other people took up like baking or cycling or whatever. For some reason, I got into Tidy Tuesday. So there's a GitHub repo. And if you scroll down in the GitHub repo, you can see all the data sets from like each week. So this week the dataset is on twinned cities. So if you go into like the README for a specific week, you get a little bit of information about what the data is about, like where it's from. You get some instructions for how to load it into R, Python, Julia, and their CSV files if you really want those. And there's some really nice data dictionaries that explain what all of the variable names mean, and those are really, really helpful. So this week's data is all about like twin cities, so links between different cities around the world. So there's actually two data sets this week. So one of them is all about like the actual cities. So you've got like an ID, the name of the city, coordinates of where it is, what country it's in, and continent. And then the second data set is the actual links between them. So it's just sort of two columns and sort of start and end point of the links. So I'm going to jump over to R and see if we can start making some things.
Awesome. And I asked everybody if they can both see your screen and hear you clearly, and everybody so far has given me a thumbs up. Um, Everybody, if there is a point in time when you need things to be zoomed in a little bit more on Nicola's screen, please let us know. Thank you for the thumbs up and
Nice,
zoom. All right, great.
nice. All right. Um, so I have all of my Tidy Tuesday visualizations from like the last 5 years all live in one GitHub repo, which is fairly nicely structured. Um, One of the things that I started making to try and like help save myself some time with some template files because when you're doing like visual whether it's visualizations or analysis or like whatever it is, you end up doing the same thing or very similar things week after week. And I didn't want to just keep typing out the same things every week. So I made myself a little R package, which has some templates in it. So if I go to that R package and do templates, you can see I've got a couple here. So I have this like use Tidy Tuesday template. And what I just need to put in here is the date. So it's today's date, which is 2026, 5th, and it's the 12th. So if I run that, that creates a whole bunch of files for me. It creates like an R script and a README file. So if I open these up, you can see it's in here. So it creates this folder here, and it makes a README file, which I will open as well. Okay, so it just has like like some space for a title and loads in the chart that we will make, hopefully, in this hour. And then this is the R script that it generates. Um, so I'll talk you through this a little bit first, but we'll kind of go into more depth as we go through. So we load all the packages to start off with. Basically the entire tidyverse. I also use the showtext package for text. I love the showtext package because you can load like Google fonts, which means you never have to worry about trying to install fonts on your own laptop or try to give other people instructions for loading fonts on their laptop. Also got a couple of packages for doing some fancy text, so like some bold highlighting or like color text. We got glue for sticking together variables and text. And we've got the ggview package, which is super useful for previewing your plots at the same size and resolution that you want to save them at. So if you've ever done that thing where you're like spending ages tinkering with your plot and like making it look really pretty and perfect, and then you use gsave, and it just like it's a complete mess and it looks nothing like the preview you had in RStudio. ggview is really good for that, and I'll show you how it works. So the other sections in this template are basically like to load in the data, and the templates files are put in the correct date and stuff. This is loading some fonts from the showtext package. I've got some defaults in there so that if I'm like having a busy day and I don't have time to pick out fancy fonts, I've got something that I know looks all right. I've got some default colors. Again, if I'm busy, then I'll use those. I got some sort of like setup because every time I'm making a chart, it's like almost always got title, subtitle, caption, and all of that. So just like prep those variables ahead of time. And then I've got kind of like a theme that's set up. And it's all kind of written out rather than being like in a, I guess, a personalized theme function so that it's easier to edit one bit of it for a particular chart. And then I've got some code at the bottom to save it in the correct place. So I never need to worry about figuring out where I'm supposed to be saving stuff.
Hey, Nicola, I have a
Yes.
question because we are on fonts right now on the screen. Rory has a question that resonates with me too, which is, do show text and system fonts do different things? He says, because fonts and ggplot scare me. And honestly, same. I
Yeah.
stay away from
Like,
anything that's not standard because I'm scared. I'm like, this isn't going to work.
so they can do the same thing, but they can also do different things. So system fonts is really good for finding fonts that you have installed on your computer. Um,
Yes.
that that works great if you are just making it yourself, but if you're collaborating with other people and like one of you is on like Windows and one of you is on Linux and you're trying to use some like
Oh,
Microsoft font,
the worst.
that's yeah, then you have to give instructions for how you install fonts. Whereas this sort of like font add Google, I mean, as long as you have an internet connection, it just sort of downloads it from Google. So you don't have to worry about whether you have that font, whether your collaborator has that font. It just kind of loads it in for you. You can
Okay.
load like local fonts with show text as well if you do have something, I don't know, special or different that you want to use.
It's
Um,
kind of incentivizing to stick with Google Fonts though, because then you kind of can't get it wrong, right?
yeah, the only time I've like it's not worked is when I've like been on a train and there's been like no Wi-Fi and your script doesn't run because you can't connect to the internet. But that's like
Fair
a weird, it's a
enough.
very niche problem, I think.
Yes. All right,
Um,
awesome. Thank you.
nice. But yeah, fonts in R are super like tricky and weird. So the only thing I'm going to grab from the R for Data Science TidyTuesday repo is this little bit of code here to kind of load in the specific data sets. So if I just run all of this, it's kind of like when you run TidyTuesday RTT load, it's like downloading those CSV files from GitHub. And now I have two data sets, one called cities, right? So it's got that like unique ID, the name of the city, coordinates, country and country code, and continent. And links looks a little bit confusing, but it's just the ID for different countries, and source and target just says that there's a link between those two countries. So I'm also just gonna run this in the background and then kind of start to think about what on earth I'm gonna plot with this data. Um, and this is a really nice data set. Like it's not super big, like in terms of number of rows or columns, but there's so many things I kind of want to look at with this data. Um, so one of the things I would quite like to look at is whether you can connect every country in the world through like one giant loop um, of like these twinned cities. Um, Other things you could look at is like which country is the most connected. So you could do some sort of like global map in color based on how connected they are. What I kind of want to look at is how like connected the world is to each other in terms of how close things are. So like is a city in Europe more likely to be connected to other cities in Europe? So what I'm gonna my brain sort of thinking in terms of chart type is something maybe like a Sankey diagram or a chord diagram. Um, but then you kind of have to choose what level you do it at. If you do that at the country level, it's just I think it's just going to look like a big pile of spaghetti because there's too many countries and there's just going to be lots and lots of lines. At the same time, I think if you do it at continent level, there's like that might work. Okay, there's like I think there's 6 in the data set. So that will probably work okay. Um, I think what I'm going to do though is pick one city and then sort of look at how connected that is. Okay, so I'm gonna have a little look first of all at what like list of cities we have. Um, so actually, if I just look at the data set, so you can use the view function in R, and then just kind of like sort them and have a little look. I think like when I'm doing Tidy Tuesday quite a lot, I quite often pick like cities or countries that I know, like are some way connected to me personally, because then you find out like interesting things about like where you live or um that kind of thing. So I want to see if I start with cities and then filter the country code to be GB. So we'll have a look at what's in the UK and then I quite often pipe that into view at the end, so you get this nice kind of human readable look. And then I can browse through all the cities in the UK that we might focus on. Um, I'm gonna go Edinburgh because that's where I live. So purely self-serving. So that's giving me one row of the data, and the thing that I'm really interested in then is going to be this ID column. So I'm just gonna grab that. Okay. Um, I think what I'm also thinking at the moment is this is something that I would quite like to parameterize. Um, the idea is that you can type in whatever city you want, and at the end you will get the plot for your chosen city. So
I
I'm
like that. Thinking ahead.
yes, I'm trying to think ahead. Um, it's one of these things with like a really big data set when you pick like one tiny little aspect of it, the chances of someone else picking that really same specific aspect is probably quite small. So
We have at least one other person who sees their hometown, Shirakawa. Satoshi says, I
nice,
see my hometown. Did
nice.
anybody else see theirs? I did not see mine yet.
All right, so I got my ID. So what I need to do now is go into this links data set and pick out like all of the links that relate to this city ID. Um, this one's a little bit weird because the order of the source and the target doesn't matter at all. So I need to filter it when either the source is equal to the city ID or when the target is equal to uh the city ID. Uh, that didn't work. That's because I said or, not and. There you go. All right, so I got 11 links, and you can see that like some of them are in the first column and some of them are in the second column, and that's um it's like a little bit annoying. So I'm actually gonna grab them. Um, so I want to get the ID. Let's do if else. So if the source ID is equal to my city ID, then what I actually want is the other one, and then vice versa. Okay. So now, yeah, now this column is all of the like IDs of the other cities that it's linked with. And that's the only thing I actually want. I use select all the time to like tidy up because I really hate having extra columns that I'm not interested in kind of hanging around in my data. Um, Purely personal choice. Um, but now I can join this with uh, the city's data by the ID, right? And that's my sort of like, I guess, tidy final data set. So I have 11 cities that are all linked to my chosen city of Edinburgh, and I've got like all the information on them. So I always save this as like plot data. It's not the most imaginative name, but I do it every time. Um, I'm going to skip over the text bit just now because quite often it's kind of like I actually write it at the end once you figure out what your plot is of and what you want to say. Um, so now I need to think a little bit about how I want to visualize this. Um, I'm kind
We
of
have
thinking of
some votes
something.
for 3D bar charts, jokingly, in in the Discord.
No, 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 no.
Don't listen.
Um, I think what I really want to do here is like a sunburst diagram. So like in the middle, you're gonna have that chosen city, and then you'll have all of the cities it's connected to, then all of the countries they're in, and then all of the continents they're in. And I'm kind of thinking if you color by continent, then you can see like quite clearly like which continent's going to dominate and whether that's the same as the continent that your chosen city is in.
Okay.
Um, so sunburst diagrams are like um kind of like I guess like a circular tree map and or kind of like stacked donut charts. Um, so there are different ways to make this. So one of the things I quite often do at this point is if I'm thinking about a chart that I know I've made before, I quite often like go and look at the code for that chart and just like copy and paste it and then edit it rather than trying to write it from scratch every time. So I have a little Shiny app that grabs all of my TidyTuesday plots from that repository, and you can kind of search by package. You can also search by name, which I appreciate is not the most useful. But I remember doing a sunburst chart on Australian frogs for a previous Tidy Tuesday.
Good memory.
Um, so this is what a sunburst chart is. And I have links to the code. So when I click on this, it just opens and then I get the code.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, the benefits of good documentation for your own
yeah,
stuff.
you have to learn the hard way, I think. I still curse 2021 me for their terrible file naming system. Um, but yeah, so this I can see like how did I make it the last time? And the last time I made it in a really weird way. Um, okay, I know why I did this. Sometimes it takes a while for me to remember why I did certain things. So normally if I was making a sunburst diagram, I would probably use the ggforce package, which has like geom arc bar.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make it interactive, so it had these little tooltips, and that doesn't work with the giraffe package. So I think I remade instead of arcs, I made them all as polygons.
I'm sorry, I think you mean the ggiraph package.
Yes. I never know. I never know.
It's totally giraffe. It says it
Yeah,
in the
but it's
documentation, but I will never not call it ggiraph.
yeah, I called it ggiraph for like years, and then Cara Thompson showed me the hex sticker, and it was a picture of a giraffe, and we were both kind of
Yes,
like, "Oh, that makes sense." Um,
it is 100% giraffe. Okay, we can move on.
um, so this one was a little while ago, and I think it was before um a newer version of ggplot 2 came out. So I think previously, if you wanted to make like pie charts or donut charts, in ggplot 2, you could make like a bar chart and then use chord polar, which kind of like pushes it into a circle. The problem with that is it like putting annotations and stuff on it is a nightmare because their coordinate system is just goes crazy and you don't know where any points actually are. But um, the newer versions of ggplot 2 have like coord radial, which I think is basically just fixes um, that issue. So I'm gonna attempt that. So what do I want? First of all, I need to figure out for every given. So I'm gonna have 3 layers on my radial chart, my sunburst chart. I'm gonna have um like cities, countries, and then continents. So I need to take my plot data and then group it by um one of the regions. So let's just start with city, which is actually in the data, city is down as name, but I know I'm gonna keep typing city if I mean city, so I'm gonna rename that. So group by
Yes,
city,
rename
just
it.
yes.
I'm
Otherwise,
all about renaming
I'll
something.
spend more time fixing my own typos than I will just fixing it. Um, so I want to count up the number of each city, which okay, there should just be one, and then do that, and then I need to keep the city, the number, and because I want to color by continent, I need to keep that in the data. Okay, so this is what I need. Now I want to do the same code for country and continent. So I'm going to stick this as a function to save me wrangling lots of little data sets. So it's going to be a function of like region. Okay. Grab that in there.
We might have crashed your Shiny app. They give it the
It's
hug of death, Nicola.
so the Shiny app, it will take a while to load.
Okay,
Because it's deployed with WebR, so you're not crashing my Shiny app, you're crashing your own browser.
good.
Um,
Okay, that's
so
that's good news actually. So
yes,
it's hosted in your own browser. Give it a second and let it load.
it does take a little while just because it's like WebR and it's kind of loading a bunch of packages in the background.
Yeah.
Uh, okay. Um, so um, yeah, I've got this little function here which takes like a region level, so that will take city, country, or continent as an input, and it will return me a data set that looks a little bit like this. Um, you may or may not have seen this like weird curly bracket notation before. Um, it's like a weird sort of tidy eval thing that lets you put variable names in without quotation marks, essentially.
Yeah. I call it a double hug.
Yes. So if I do something like region data of country, I get that. Right. So I still have the country, the number. And if I do continent, I think, okay, it's gonna give me some duplicates. So let's stick distinct in there. I don't want to count them all twice. Okay. So that's a nice quick way of getting my data sets. So start actually making your charts.
I
So
love that you have just cord radial floating down
yeah,
there,
just
just waiting.
I'm like, I will need that in a moment. Don't delete it. You'll have to type it again. Okay, so I wanted a geom call. So my data is going to be this region data. I'm going to start with city, and then mapping is going to be a little bit weird. So I think X variables I want to be N, and Y I want to be like 1, and then fill is equal to continent. I think. Is that gonna do what I want? Okay, that sort of looks correct. And then if I add coord radial, okay, it's got a weird gap here, which I don't want. I always use like expand equals false in like most of my charts because I don't like the weird extra space. So this, okay, this is kind of made a pie chart. That's
Uh-oh,
fine.
we made a pie chart on
We've
accident.
we accidentally made some pie charts. Okay, but this this should go away. Um, so if I switch Y to 2, that should stack another one on top of it. And I should have region data is equal to country. Okay, this is looking better. And then if I do one more, this is going to be like continent and it's moved that up to 3. Okay, I think that uh, actually move it to 3. Okay, that's starting to look better.
I like
Um,
this. Now we're getting closer to like a dartboard. Ooh, but you know
yes,
what? I saw we had a question that might benefit us to do while before we get too far away from your dplyr query.
yes.
Um, and it was from Nathan saying, can you say why you used mutate rather than summarize?
Yes. Because I want to keep continent in there. So if I normally only wanted to, um, like when you summarize it, will get rid of everything that you haven't kind of grouped by. But
Yeah,
I'm using mutate because I want to color by continent, so it needs to stick around. So that's the only reason I'm kind of using mutate there.
excellent. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So I want to get rid of this pie chart thing in the middle. So what I want to do here is if I filter the city's data to get the city, it's that chosen city. So, and then the X value is just going to be all of them. So it's within number of rows, right? Yes, I did mean
I
equals
think
equals.
so.
There we
The
go.
most commonly made mistake for me in R,
Oh yeah,
absolutely. Did you mean
definitely.
double
Did you mean?
equals?
Yeah, yes, I
Yes,
did.
I
Thank
did.
you. All right. That sort of looks what I mean, like is a rough idea. One thing that's a little bit weird is that you can't see um like the different cities because there's no outlines. So I'm gonna, if I say color is equal to my text color, does this help? Yeah. So that, and I'm just gonna copy and paste that in here. So now it's a little bit easier to see that like you have your one city that you've picked in the middle. There's like three, four, 7 cities in 7 countries that are all in Europe, which means we now get to do the fun part, which is like making it look pretty.
Yeah, I think
So
it's great to see that you still have all of the like random bits that are around, right? Like you haven't like theme voided anything. You're just like leave them there. It's fine. We're gonna get there.
yeah, I quite often leave like theme void is great for making kind of charts like this in maps, but quite often I leave it till the very end because it can really
Yeah.
help with like positioning annotations and things. If you can be like, oh, I want it to
Yeah.
go there, and you can see what those coordinates are.
And if you are working with a grid, I made the mistake one time in a very big project of just sort of theme voiding from the beginning and not showing my my indexes basically on the side, and I couldn't
Yeah.
figure out why my plot was upside down. And I just because I didn't have the visual cue of going, oh, because my numbers are
Yes.
backwards. Yeah.
Yeah. All
Don't
right.
do that to yourself.
Yeah, don't do that. Keep anything that might be helpful until the end. Um, so this, I guess this all sometimes feels a little bit like cheating. When you use a template, so you can just stick a plus on the end and then fire in all of the um sort of template like theme stuff that I had. So I tend to just run it and see what it looks like. One
Whoa.
thing that you might notice, one, I guess the text is like a slightly different size, and also it's opened in this viewer tab, and that's because it has this plus canvas thing on the end, and that's from ggview. So here you can say I want it to be like 7 by 5. DPI is 300, which matches with ggsave, and set the background color of like the whole area, which means that when like if you use ggSave to save this, that is what it will look like. It shows you exactly as it will be, and it's like a quite nice way to play around with some different sizes. So I think actually for this chart, I probably want it to be portrait. If I put some text above it and get rid of that legend, I'm gonna do that just now. Legend dot position equals none. Okay. Yeah. All right. I am gonna switch this to theme void to get rid of all of the stuff I don't want. And I'm gonna add an annotation to put like the name of the chosen city right in the middle.
Middle of our dartboard will be
Yeah.
Edinburgh. Okay.
So
Or wait, chosen
uh
city. We parameterized.
yes, we did.
We. I'm using we generously here. Nicola parameterized.
Um so it's gonna be label equals chosen city, and this is gonna be text. And have that on at the end. All right, okay. So it's not super in the middle, but that's all right. Okay. Um, what else do I want to do? So one thing I want to do is I want to get rid of the little white gaps between them. A little bit annoying. So in ggplot 2, the width of columns is zero point 0.9, not 1. Um, so let's get rid of that. And then I'm going to do colors. Okay. I don't like the ggplot 2 default colors. But
Oh, sorry,
um
Hadley.
yeah. Um, so I'm gonna let's choose something else. I quite often use rcartocolor because they have this kind of like nice combination of like being accessible and being quite good colors, but also looking quite nice. Um, so I use them quite a lot, and I'm going to define a color palette from there. The other thing I want to do is like map continents to colors kind of ahead of time because you can see there's only 4 in this chart, but there's actually 6 values. So if you were to choose a different city, then the colors might switch order, which is not great. So
They
I'm
would kind of
gonna,
recycle, right?
yeah, or like you would, like I think they go alphabetically. So
Oh,
if
okay.
you, like, they might just shift around, which is a little bit weird. So I need one color for every unique value in the continent. Okay. Um, so continents, this color palette is gonna be our carto color. Carto palette N is gonna be the length of continents. And okay, if I just go here. You have to give the names of the palette you want. It's just going to be from here. Um, so you can look for just the colorblind friendly ones, and for discrete palette, it's going to be the safe palette. Okay. And then I can just do like names of my color palette is equal to those continents. So it will use the same combination of color and continent regardless of which order they appear in. So if I do in here, like scale fill, manual values equals my color palette. All right, I get that. Okay. What I quite often do with kind of like instead of a legend is I use like color text in the legend. So you'd have like a nice sentence that writes out the different continent names that are in the color that applies in the chart. So to do that, you can use, I think you can use marquee, but I've been kind of using ggtext for so long that that is kind of my default. So the way you do that is with like writing spans. So you'd put like the name inside the spans and then style it. Because I want to map over everything, I'm going to use per. So I have this like list of continents and this kind of like list of color palettes. And basically for every element in the color palette, I want to create like some HTML text with the name of the color and the name of the continent. So I can use glue to do that. And I take my spans from here. So inside the span, you have style is equal to, so the color is going to be the color palette dot x. So that's going to put in like when you map over it the first time, that will give you the first element in the color palette. And then in here, I want to get the name of the color palette and get that first one again. Okay.
This is something that I would have to templatize for myself. Like I would have to like
Yeah.
put it somewhere so I could remember how to do it. I have a lot of little snippets of like spans
Oh yeah.
for my own sanity.
So this gives you like this vector. So you have this span and you're like, okay, Asia, but in this color. So what I want to do is take that and like construct a sentence with it. Um, I mean, you can write out the sentence and pull those values in, but you can also use like string flatten from string R. So you can say like between each element, put a comma. So the sentence is going to read like Asia, comma, North America, comma, and so on. And then, but you can change the last one, which is like a really nice feature for writing sentences. So that creates this, it looks horrendous, which is why you use things like per, so you don't have to type all this out yourself. But you get like Oceania and South America. And then if I stick a full stop on the end, uh, it's not gonna like that. Okay. Um, so this is my subtitle text. So that's gonna be my subtitle colors, and then subtitle can be something like twinned cities in my long list, and then full stop. Okay. So my subtitle, yeah, that looks all right. And then I can stick that in to subtitle with labs. So subtitle equals ST. And okay, you can't see all of them, they're a little bit pale, so I will probably want to fix that. But you get this kind of like nice kind of, I guess, automated colored text in
Yeah,
here.
it says the right thing at least in the right colors.
It does, yeah. And the reason that works is because inside the theme, I have plot.subtitle equals element text box simple, which is from ggtext. And it basically says apply any HTML formatting or markdown formatting to the text. If you just have like element text, um, you'll just like get the sort of garbled HTML. What I think might help is if I put those names in bold text just for some of those lighter colors. Right. So you can use like it's something that I think is a little bit weird to combine markdown formatting with HTML in the one line. But it works, so I will. So you can stick the names in bold text in markdown and it just makes it a little bit easier to read. Um, and then you can go ahead and sort of start adding things like titles and captions and whatnot. The other thing I want to do is move this down a little bit. So in annotate, you have like HJust and VJust to move up and down. Um, I can never remember which way around they are.
This is
See,
where
that's
you
moved. That's
type it
moved.
and figure it out. Actually,
Yeah,
I love teaching HJust and VJust, but whenever I'm in some sort of like other coordinate system, who knows?
yeah. Um, so we just moved it down a little bit. So if I go a little bit further, okay. It is supposed to be between like 0 and 1, but putting values outside of that does work. So putting to 2 does shift it down a bit. Um, And I think that is the benefit of chord radial is that like moving stuff up and down actually moves it up and down. If you use chord polar, moving it up and down like sends it like left and right and diagonal,
Yeah.
which is really confusing. Um, so we kind of got this chart here. Um, I think uh, what I kind of want to do with this is because it's not super kind of explanatory. Would we make it interactive? So the nice thing, so if we put like let's say we put the city interactive, so switch geoncall to geoncall interactive, and let's say the tooltip is just the city. Initially, it's not going to do anything because with the giraffe package slash functions, you have to put it in uh here. And does this work? That's not weird. Okay. Okay, that's not working for some reason. Okay, let's ignore that for a second. Um, what else do I want to do with this? Okay, so the other thing I wanted to check was like, does this actually work in terms of being parameterized? So if I switch it to like a different city and just rerun all of my code, does this work? And like it does, like you can see that it's the colors are still like the right way around. They're still in the same kind of order. Nothing's changing, but you're getting this updated chart, which is quite nice. So yeah, I think like we are starting to run out of time a little bit. So I will
Yeah, but
do,
look how far you've come in
I know.
less than an hour. This is amazing.
Um, the last couple of things I'll show you is like I guess like using like title. Um, so title, I might just do something like twinned cities like around the world. And again, I've kind of like pre-populated that plot.title thing. So it actually uses a different font and like makes it bigger. Um, one of the nice things about this is like relative sizing. So the idea with using size equals rel is that it's saying that the title is 1.5 times the base size, which means that if you want to resize your chart, you don't have to go through and like change the font size of every single element. So I think this is like quite small. And my base size on my uh, theme is 12. So if I made it a little bit bigger, okay, like everything kind of scales up, which is quite nice. So I do that. And the other thing I do have is um, some functions. So these both, I have two functions here. One is like social caption and one is source caption, which I appreciate are badly named because they do quite different things. Um, so these are both currently in a personal R package, but what these do is basically um, sort of define the text I usually use in the source. So if I run this, what it does is similar to that kind of trick we did with the color text, is it creates all of this like horrendous looking HTML code to stick some icons and like attribution in it. And then this is where I would put like combine the attribution for the source of data with the attribution for the chart. And the source of the data is um, is from Wikidata, I think. Yes. Okay. Um, so let's put that in there. And then if I do in here, caption equals cap, right? It adds like this at the bottom automatically for me. So I don't have to kind of think about that every week. I sort of figured out that problem out once, and then never do it again.
You're
Um,
so smart, only solving your own problems
yeah,
once.
yeah, I
I just
try.
solve them every week.
Um, yeah. What I'd probably do to make this a little bit less tall because I've got one of the things is when you're using like chord radial is it sort of like does this fixed aspect ratio of the plot area to
Yeah.
make it square, so you end up with this like weird white space. But you can kind of play around with that. Actually, like 6.5 is probably nice. Yeah, and that looks kind of okay, and you can like adjust the margins a little bit. But yeah,
I was
I
just
think we're
thinking I usually use chord underscore fixed, but I think that that's
yeah.
only for Cartesian.
Yeah, so you can do the same sort of thing if you're making something that's square.
Yeah.
Then yeah, coord fixed is really useful. It's really nice for like heat maps when you're trying to make
Yeah,
actual
not as
squares.
helpful with with
No.
this situation.
Yeah.
But we did have a Canvas question. If we want to, I know we only have like 9 minutes left, but let's
Yeah.
pop it in here. Daniel Chen asked, so you can save a plot with the Canvas call and it doesn't mess up the ggplot object?
Yes, you can. That's a very good question. So one, I guess there's two ways of thinking about this. Is one, you can either like get rid of your kind of canvas call and like it looks horrible, but then you can do GG save as normal and it will look nice. Um, the quicker way of doing it is actually the ggview package has two functions. One is canvas, the other one is save ggplot.
Yeah,
Um,
save underscore ggplot.
so this is what actually converted me to being like a forwards assignment operator. I appreciate that. Um, so I usually have this commented out at the end of my templates. But this sort of says like assign that to the object P, and then you can use save underscore ggplot at the object P, and that will save it in the right place. And it's quite easy to just comment that little bit out if you decide to make some other tweaks to it. But I can show you what that looks like.
Oh my gosh, look at all of the nice little like social icons down there. This is
Yeah.
adorable.
So there is a blog post I wrote on like how to make your own, and I think someone converted that into an R package, and I cannot remember the name of it, but it's something like GG annotate or like caption. I will look it up and I will find it. But
Okay, we'll put it in the Discord, yeah,
yeah,
once we find it.
like when you run um save ggplot, like that's what you get. So it looks, identical to this version here. Which is
So you
why I
know
use it.
what you're getting. Yeah.
Know what you're getting. You don't spend ages like styling it and making it pretty, and then have to like do it all again when you decide what size your chart is. So that's kind of like a really nice thing with that. But yeah, so I think like that's we done like what like 15 minutes, and that's kind of where we are. I think
Amazing. Look how far
yeah,
the like helpful tools and I hit this problem once, I'm going to solve it once and have it solved for me in the future. Look how far that can get you. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. So like it really saves time doing those like repetitive tasks that you do over and over. Like you just save so much time if you don't have to kind of keep doing them.
Well,
But
we
yeah,
have continually been mind blown in the Discord over here. Um, it's been amazing. One of the, let me see. One of the things I wanted to point out is I said, "Oh, it took me this long to realize that Nicola's like, um, in our brand was Nicola Rennie brand." And
yeah.
then someone mentioned that it's also why cowplot is called that because COW was claws o wilk.
Oh, nice, nice.
Blew my mind. What a great piece of lore. Thank you so much for sharing everything and all of your wisdom. You have some groupies here. If people would like to keep up with you and see your posts, what is the best way for them to do that?
I'm on Blue Sky and LinkedIn and Mastodon or my website, which has
And
links to
they're
all of the other things. Yeah.
yes, and like if you see the strip at the bottom of her
Yeah.
plot there, you can see all of the
Yes.
places to find her.
There you go. There you go. All of these places. There you go.
And you, I happen to know, submitted this Tidy Tuesday data. You regularly curate. So thank you so much for the kind of like service that you do to our community and helping curate.
Thank you. I won't fully take credit for this week's curation. It was actually a colleague of mine that I worked with curated the data. I just did the PR bit,
But
the
you
easy bit at the
did
end. Yeah.
the important part of getting it across the finish line. Everybody, I would really love to encourage you to curate a data set. We have an entire episode that we did with John Harmon of Tidy Tuesday. And if you are curious about how to put data together, how to curate it and submit it, I really, really highly encourage you to do that. It's such a fun process. And then your data gets to be used by people all over the globe as they are learning and practicing their data viz, which is a really, really cool feeling. I have submitted once and I got to see people make plots and I was just like mind blown. Other than that, Nicola, thank you so much for joining us. This was super fun. I hope you had a good
Very
time.
welcome. I had a great time.
Awesome. Everybody, big round of applause for Nicola. Big round of applause for Nick, who joined us as our special co-host today. Isabella, we really, really miss you. We hope you're having a wonderful time at PyCon, and we'll see you all on Thursday for coming to the Data Science Hangout or next Tuesday at the lab. Bye, everybody. I'll see you on Discord.